Captain Todd Jarvis and one of his henchmen, I'm sorry, Keith, one of his lieutenants, Keith Lucas. Me and Todd go back a long time. His dad was Phil Jarvis, who was a long-time homicide lieutenant, used to see him all the time, and retired as a captain. I remember he was a little young shaver out at the Jarvis horse ranch in Lakeside, weren't you, years ago? I don't know what day it is, but I can remember that. Anyway, Captain Todd has been on the department 27 years. He's served in a number of capacity. When I first ran across him, really, he was riding a motorcycle for the traffic division. I won't hold that against you for Pete's sakes. I've been in Central Motors, the Armed Narcotics Task Force, and he got the luck of the draw. You got the short straw when you got promoted X number of months ago. He got Mid-City. Now, Mid-City just went under a reorganization and now encompasses North Park. Lost a little bit of territory, but gained North Park. And he and Keith are going to be here today to talk about, some of the issues that are occurring as we speak right here in North Park. Could be of interest to you. And without further ado, my good friend, Todd Jarvis. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for the great lunch. Appreciate it. I still can't get over calling him Gary, and he corrected me on a couple emails. I grew up in a military, law enforcement family. All my friends' parents were Mr. and Mrs., and he was a detective sergeant when I met him, and he was my captain. He's the one that called me and gave me my first promotion to sergeant, and for me, he's always captain. He'll be senior captain now, but I appreciate him asking us to be here. As he indicated, Mid-City Division is one of the 9 divisions within the San Diego Police Department, and what he asked me to do is just talk to you a little bit about what's going on in North Park, what we're doing since we came here. But I'll give you a little rundown about how some things change real quickly. He said I have about an hour, is that right? And then
make sure you turn off the lights when you leave.
I don't know where Keith and I wait for our $1,000 check. That's a great idea.
Next week.
Seems like a pretty rough crowd, and I was a detective for about 20 minutes once, and that doesn't take a detective to figure out you have to do some partying in here. I've seen strobe lights, beer balls. Keep an eye on this place. We may just do that.
Keep an eye on all of them, I read.
The mission of the San Diego Police Department is we try to maintain peace and order through providing outstanding police services. We take that to heart at Mid-City. Mid-City Division was formed in about 1994, early 1995, and at that time it encompassed everything between the city limits of La Mesa and 805 on the west, 94 and Interstate 8 on the north and south. And about a year ago, the department looked at the way we were spread out around the city, and we want to see, are we doing things in the most efficient manner? And we decided to take a good look at that. We looked at calls for service in different parts of the city. We looked at the response times. We looked at the directed versus non-directed time that the officers that worked that part of the city had. And we determined we could probably be doing things differently. So at that time, and that's right about the time Keith and I got to Mid-City, we did a little moving around. And we got rid of the college area, which just broke our hearts. With all the sex crimes and the drunken and the parties and all that. That went to Eastern Division, and then the bottom part of our division, the borders Highway 94, Oak Park, went back to Southeastern Division, which it had always been a part of prior to Mid-City being developed. With giving those beats away, we picked up North Park and Burlingame. And I was a little leery, to be honest with you, about picking up North Park, because at the time, North Park and the East Village downtown always compete for the most calls for service in the city of San Diego. So I knew, although we were giving up some busy areas, we were picking up the most busy beat in the city. And quite frankly, I think things definitely worked out for the best, and I think they worked out for the best for you. And I'll tell you why. This happened on September 17th. We actually made the switch. I started going to meetings in July with community groups. we started letting them know this should be a seamless transition. You shouldn't have even known there was a different division policing you, and probably you didn't, other than some new faces here. We had some pretty upset officers from Western Division because they've had a lot of really heartfelt interest in this community. A lot of them have been working here for 20 years or more, and now all of a sudden this isn't part of their division. So a lot of them are trying to get to Mid-City, and I know they'll be back. But what I think happens, we got a whole new, fresh set of eyes on some issues that were going on here, and I'll tell you about a couple of successes we've already had here in a little while. But thus far, unless you tell me differently, I think this has been very successful. The crime in North Park, in this particular beat that we call beat 813 now, it's down 25% in 2011 versus 2010. That's violent crime. That is a significant amount. Robberies are down 25%, street robberies. Aggravated assault, which is assault that sends somebody to the hospital, they have to have medical care. It's more than a simple battery where you knock somebody down. They're down 23%. And then, even better than that, rapes are down 38%, which when you consider all the bars and things that are going on here, for even the intoxicated cases to be down significant, and murder in 2011 versus 2010 was down 100%. We had no cases in 2011. So we plan on continuing that. Property crime is not doing as well. We're down just about across the board, not to that extent, but those numbers, we look at numbers all day long, and that's how we're judged as police administrators, as we're doing our job right by our bosses. And rarely do you see a drop in 25% in violent crime. So it's something that we plan on continuing. Just this month, February 1st until this morning when I ran the numbers, we had already answered 540 calls for service in North Park alone, just in this beat. And since we took over in September of last year, we've answered over 11,700 calls. So you're getting a lot of service. Now let me tell you what happened before with Western Division here, and I'm absolutely not bashing them, and I see him on camera, so he's going to kick me if it sounds like I am. They did a great job here, and they policed this area for a couple decades. And their staffing limitations were such that 805 was their eastern boundary, and they went all the way to the tip of Point Loma. Wow. And they went from Euclid Street all the way to Convoy and Arrow, including all of Mission Valley, Linda Vista, up into Bay Park. So you can see that if you call an officer here at your address, and the closest one's coming from Point Loma, it's going to take a while. Well, now that we're a little closer, our response times have dropped. And in the last quarter, our response times dropped across the board. Emergency calls, we got here 2 minutes faster on average than other places in the city. And then we have priorities after that, priority 1 through 4. That's based on how bad you need us. Even the priority 4s, we improved by 10 minutes over the city average. So I think, as much as we were all resistant to change and to moving into different divisions, this has been a good thing for your community. It's definitely been a good thing for us because it allows us to be more efficient. Now, one thing you also get is instead of one beat car being in North Park, you get all of Keith's guys out here. Keith's the service area lieutenant for this area. He's got North Park, Burlingame, Normal Heights, and Adams North, those 4 communities. And instead of having 2 or 3 officers there now, there's some nights you have 2 squads working. You might have 10 officers working in the same area where we had 2 to 5 before. We also have a bike team and a few other things I'll talk to you about.